I want to start this video with a very honest, very human question. Have you ever gotten so angry that you regretted it afterward? Regretted the words you said, regretted what you did, regretted that you let your anger control you, even if it was just for a few seconds. If you've ever felt that way, or if you're in a period of life where your emotions flare up more easily than usual, I want you to know you're not alone. I've worked with so many people across the US. From young professionals overwhelmed by career pressure to adults struggling through marriages, jobs, or broken relationships. And interestingly, most of them tell me the exact same thing. I don't want to get angry, but it comes too fast. One of my patients in Seattle once told me, I don't understand why I lose my temper so quickly. I don't want to hurt anyone, but I let my anger take over. And I asked her, can you describe the moment right before the anger hits? She paused, then said something many of us can relate to. I just feel like everything has to go my way. That's exactly where Stoic philosophy begins to open our eyes. Stoicism teaches that anger doesn't start with yelling or an explosive action. It always starts with a distorted belief that the world must follow our script, that people should behave according to our expectations. I want you to imagine this. You're driving on a highway and a car suddenly cuts in front of you. There are two ways you can react. One, you explode, honk, yell, feel personally offended. Two, you take a deep breath and whisper to yourself, I can't control what they do, I can only control how I respond. Same situation, two completely different worlds inside your mind. Anger is a natural reflex, it's not the enemy, but it becomes the ruler of your life if you aren't prepared to face it. And that's why I love Stoicism so much, because it doesn't require you to suppress emotion or turn yourself into a saint who never gets mad. Stoics simply learn how to control their reactions so they don't lose themselves in the moment. I remember a 55-year-old man in Texas whom I once helped. He told me, I'm not afraid of other people's anger, I'm afraid of my own. And I understood that deeply, because the anger inside us can destroy our dignity, our trust, and our relationships. All in just a handful of impulsive seconds. Stoicism teaches that to stay calm, you must learn to see anger before it fully rises. It's like standing on the shore and noticing a wave from far away. You can't stop the wave from coming, but you can adjust your stance, steady your breath, and choose how to face it. In over a decade of working in psychology and applying Stoic principles, I've learned one thing. Anger doesn't make someone a bad person, it simply reveals the parts of them that are unhealed or untrained. And when you understand that, you judge yourself less. And controlling your anger becomes easier. This video will share with you 9 practical Stoic methods to control anger, not abstract theory, but real tools you can apply right after watching. But before we dive in, I want you to remember what Marcus Aurelius once wrote. Anger is a poison we pour into our own minds. You don't control anger to be better than others, you control anger to protect your own peace. If you're tired of being overwhelmed by your emotions, if you wish you were calmer, more thoughtful, more composed, if you've ever wondered why a small thing can ruin your whole day, then you're in the right place at the right time. So now, let's begin our journey into 9 Stoic ways to control anger in the most practical and insightful way possible. Way 1. Recognize anger at the very moment it begins to form. Most people don't realize this. Anger doesn't explode out of nowhere. There's always a pre-anger moment, a small subtle signal that's incredibly important. If you look closely, you'll always see it. I remember a middle-aged man named Robert from Arizona. He came to me because he would yell at his son almost every day after work. He said, it's like someone pushes a button in my head and I explode within seconds. When I asked him to describe the moment right before the explosion, he said, my heart beats fast, my chest heats up, and I get this thought, why don't they understand me? Do you see it? Anger always sends a signal first. It doesn't come from someone else's action, It comes from a thought, a demanding thought. Things must go my way. Stoicism teaches that the person who controls anger isn't the strongest, it's the one who notices it earliest. A tiny mental step back is always more powerful than a big emotional reaction. If you train yourself to see the early signs, your heartbeat, your clenched hands, heat in your chest, or a negative flash of thought, you gain a huge advantage. Sometimes, just whispering, "I'm starting to get angry," is enough to cut your anger's power in half. Way 2. Pause. Create a gap between emotion and reaction. In Stoicism, there's a powerful practice called the mental pause. It's a tiny moment, 3 to 5 seconds, when you stop yourself before reacting. Don't underestimate that moment. It's the line between impulsive behavior and wise action. I once coached a young woman in Chicago who constantly argued with her mother. She said, "I know I shouldn't yell, but in the moment I can't control myself." I taught her a simple technique. When you feel the emotion rising, take one deep breath and look at your hands. It sounds silly, right? But that's how you bring your mind back to the present instead of letting it rush into a reaction. A week later, she texted me, "I did it, I stayed silent for 5 seconds, and the argument didn't happen." That pause doesn't make you weak, it gives you the power to choose who you want to be. Seneca once wrote, "Anger is the most insane of all emotions. A moment of delay can save you from a lifetime of regret." Stoics don't try to never get angry, they learn to not act while angry. Way 3. Ask yourself, is this worth losing my peace over? I want you to ask yourself this question the next time you feel irritated. Is this really worth sacrificing my inner peace? This one question alone has saved so many people from pointless arguments, regretful messages, and actions they can't take back. A friend of mine, a manager in New York, once said, "I used to lose my entire day just because one employee looked at me the wrong way." I asked him, "Was it worth losing your peace over?" He sighed and said, "No, not at all." So many things that make us angry are actually so small that a week later we don't even remember what they were. Stoic philosophy reminds us to filter situations through one perspective. If it won't matter in a day, a week, or a month, it's not worth your anger. This question is like a pin popping a balloon. It deflates the emotional pressure swelling inside you. Way 4, look at things from a wider perspective. Zoom the camera out. One of the most powerful Stoic practices is time expansion, meaning you mentally zoom out from the moment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "View everything small as what it truly is." I remember one of my younger clients who felt devastated after being criticized by a coworker during a meeting. He said, I feel like my honor was attacked, and I asked him, "In 5 years, will you even remember this moment?" He laughed and said, "Probably not." Then I asked, "Then why let it ruin your entire day today?" Stoics look at events on a longer timeline, not to feel nothing, but to be fair to themselves. When you zoom out, anger loses about 70% of its strength instantly. The small thing returns to being small, and the truly important things, your health, your family, your integrity, your self-worth, become much clearer. Way 5. Separate the person from their behavior. One of the biggest mistakes we make is assuming people hurt us on purpose. But most of the time, what they do has nothing to do with us. I once treated a young man who felt wounded by a co-worker's harsh comment. He believed the co-worker insulted him because they disliked him. But when I asked her, "Are you sure they did that because of you?" he shook his head. "Maybe. They're just going through something and don't know how to handle it." And that's exactly what Stoicism teaches us. People's behavior reflects their internal battles, not your value. When you learn to separate the person from their actions, you stop taking everything personally. You stop thinking everything is aimed at you, and naturally you become less angry. Seneca once said, "Understand others in order to forgive them, for they too are fighting their own battles." That isn't weakness, it's maturity. Way 6. Realize that anger always makes you weaker, even when you think you're right. Let me share a small story that has stayed with me for years. A man in his 50s, a CEO in California, once told me, "There are so many times I get angry because I'm right, the other person is wrong, the situation is wrong, and I'm mad because people aren't acting the way they should." He said that with confidence, but after a few seconds he exhaled deeply. "But every time I lose my temper, I lose to myself." That's exactly what Seneca taught over 2,000 years ago. No one who is angry retains their wisdom. Anger has a dangerous quality. It makes you feel powerful, but in reality, it makes you the weakest you can be. When you're angry, your logic drops, your judgment becomes blurry, your words lose control, your actions lose precision, and you hand over the steering wheel of your life to a single emotion. Stoicism teaches that true strength is when you remain in control of yourself while others are losing control. I once asked a student, "Do you want to defeat others or do you want to defeat yourself?" He laughed and said, "Probably defeat myself." I told him then stay calm, because the moment you lose your calm, you've already lost. Anger may feel like you're fighting for what's right, but in reality, you're trading away your inner peace, and that's far too high a price. Way 7. Channel your anger into intentional action. If you think Stoicism requires you to suppress your anger, you've misunderstood it. Stoics don't run away from emotion, they transform it. I once worked with an athlete in Texas who had a habit of smashing things whenever he lost a match. He told me, "I know it's wrong, but the anger is so strong, it wants to escape." I said to him, "That's okay, let it escape, but give it a smarter exit." He asked, "What does that exit look like?" I gave him a simple list. Write down what's making you angry, take a 10-minute walk, do a few deep breathing exercises, exercise for 5 minutes, wash your face with cold water, or simply leave the room for 1 minute. A month later he came back and said, "I don't smash things anymore. I've learned how to let the anger out, without destroying anything." I smiled, because that is Stoicism, not suppression, but redirection. Anger is energy, it's powerful, it's intense, but when directed properly it can become motivation, to improve yourself, to focus better, train harder, or work more responsibly. It's like fire, uncontrolled it burns everything down. Controlled it becomes light and strength. Way 8. Accept that you cannot control others. One of the biggest sources of anger comes from wrong expectations. You expect people to be polite, to be thoughtful, to be respectful, to behave like you, to understand you, and when they don't, you get angry. But Stoicism reminds us of a timeless truth. You do not control other people's actions. You cannot choose who crosses your path today, you cannot control their personality, you cannot force them to understand you in the way you want, but you can always control how you respond. I once coached a woman who worked in customer service. She said, "Every day I have to deal with rude, impatient, unpleasant people. They drive me insane." I asked her, "Can you change them?" She answered, "No." I asked again, "Can you change yourself?" She nodded, "Yes." And that was the turning point. She learned to observe people's behavior the way she observed the weather, neutrally, without taking it personally. If it rains, you don't get mad at the clouds. If it's windy, you don't blame the air. People are the same. They react according to their history, their pain, their fears, and their ignorance, not because of you. When you understand this, something inside you relaxes. You stop taking things personally. You become detached, not cold but mature. Epictetus said, "We suffer because we want to control what is not ours to control." Let it go, and you'll feel lighter immediately. Way 9. Train inner peace as a skill, not as something you're born with. Many people think calmness is a personality trait. But Stoics understand, calmness is a skill, a skill that can be trained. I once had a patient, a 38-year-old single father. He was easily triggered, quick to anger, overwhelmed by stress from work and raising kids. He said, "I am just not a calm person. I was born hot-tempered." I looked at him and said, "No one is born calm. Calmness is something you practice." Over the next 30 days, we trained 3 small habits: 2 minutes of deep breathing every morning, writing down emotions when angry, and a 1-minute pause before responding to anything important. 30 days later, he returned and said, "I can't believe it, but I'm actually calmer." I told him what Marcus Aurelius left for us. We become what we repeatedly do. If you practice calmness every day, you become a calm person. If you practice observing your emotions every day, you become more insightful. If you practice stepping back from anger every day, you become more self-controlled. No one naturally knows how to control anger. People learn it through at least 100 failed attempts before they succeed. Inner peace is not a gift for the lucky, it's a reward for the persistent. And now, I want you to look back at the journey we just walked through, from recognizing anger when it's just a spark, pausing before reacting, protecting your peace with a simple question, expanding your perspective, separating people from their actions, to redirecting anger, releasing the need to control others, and training inner peace like a skill. Do you see the pattern? All 9 methods don't require you to be perfect, they only require you to be aware. And that is the true spirit of Stoic philosophy. It's not about becoming someone who never gets angry, but becoming someone who is never controlled by anger. I want you to remember something Seneca once wrote. Anger harms the one who holds it far more than the one it is directed toward. We often think anger is a weapon we use against others, but in reality it's like gripping a burning piece of iron, and every time we tighten our fist around it we burn ourselves first. I once asked an older patient, a man who had gone through many painful family experiences, what made him so determined to change the way he reacted. He looked at me calmly and said, "I want to be someone I'm proud of, even in the hardest moments." His words made me pause for a few seconds, because that is the essence of anger management. You want to become a version of yourself you can be proud of, not when life is easy, but when life is testing you the most. Stoic philosophy has never said emotions are bad. Stoicism simply teaches us how to stand firm, stay rational, and avoid reacting impulsively, so we don't destroy the things we value most: your family, your career, your integrity, your inner peace. If you're trying to better yourself, if you're learning to control your emotions, if you're searching for a calmer, steadier way to live in a noisy world, you're already moving in the right direction. Every time you stay calm, even for just 1 minute, you take a huge step forward compared to who you were yesterday. Ask yourself, who do I want to be when my emotions rise? Your answer to that question will shape your entire life. If this video helped you see a new part of yourself, if it made you pause for a moment and reflect on how you react, if it made you feel just a little more peaceful, then I want to invite you to stay with me on this journey. Hit like on this video. It doesn't just support me, it helps people who are struggling with anger, stress, and emotional storms discover something that might guide them out. Subscribe to the channel Stoic Awakening More. Every week I'll share new Stoic insights, Real-life stories, practical lessons, and tools that help you stay grounded in a chaotic world. Leave a comment. Which of the 9 Stoic methods do you want to apply today? I read every comment. I want to know where you are in your journey, and this community, our community, is always here to support you. Stoic Awakening More is not just a YouTube channel, it's a space for you to breathe slower, think deeper, and reconnect with your inner calm. A place where you learn to stand strong in difficulty instead of being swept away by it. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Thank you for giving yourself the chance to grow, and always remember, your anger does not define you. How you face it is what truly shapes who you are. I'll see you in the next video. Keep awakening, in your own way. Stoic Awakening More, where you become the strongest and most peaceful version of yourself.